And what people don't understand is BBMP as a government which comprises elected representatives who we elect as corporators actually decide the fate of the city. The decision on which stormwater drains are to be constructed, which are to be maintained, how much of money has to go into it, is the decision of a corporator, not an MLA, not an MP, not the chief minister, not the prime minister. The MLAs will have direct access to this 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 crore rupees. And when these guys smell that money and the power that comes along with that, they don't want to give up. So every time an election falls due, the state government will announce that we are going to do a new delimitation and reservation. They will pass a notification to that effect, and it cripples the state election commission. And actually don't care whether Bengaluru is governed by one municipal corporation or 3 or 5 or even 10. The core issue is not that, Satya. The reason why the misgovernance is happening right now is because, number one, citizens are not involved in the process of governance. All contractors are not corrupt, Satya. There are many, many good contractors. Only thing is, they are kept out of the system. The system is designed beautifully. The system is designed to keep nefarious people out if citizens are involved and proper processes are followed. I will get the line in front of your home dug up. I will get the pollution control board to issue notices to your apartment complex, even if you are in complaints. And in your apartment, the khata has still not been transferred from the builder to your individual names. I will ensure that that doesn't get. I was livid. I felt outraged. I was very angry. This joker, or the voice of this joker, we only elected her, and we deserve what we are getting. And that's why I realized that the value of a 17-year-old girl's life in the city is the amount of bribe that is to be paid to the MLA to get a project done.
More than 1,500 municipal corporations in the country do not have elected council members. And the impact of this is felt by each one of us. We have dirt, dust, mud in our ears and nose and eyes, and bad air quality, potholes, no roads. We are putting up with poor quality of governance. We don't have any say in this matter. Our ward committees do not work. We have lost interest in how we want to govern our cities and how to get results. There is a real crisis that we are facing at, and we need to get out of that. Big fancy projects come and go. Some bits of good stuff here and there happens, but the road outside your house, the commons outside your place, in your area, the parks, none of these seem to work. How do we change this? What are the causes of these things? We take Bengaluru as an example of what is happening around us and talk to Srikanth Narasimhan, who has founded Bengaluru Navanirmana Party, which is what I call a startup party right now, trying to change the status quo. He was the ex-founder of Bengaluru Apartments Federation, and he wants to change the system. Let's talk to him and find out what he has to say about all these things. Srikanth, thanks for joining us on the OoruLabs podcast. We are coming off of this whole national elections for the parliament. It took a lot of the news cycle attention for quite a while. Some of us feel that, okay, that is going to solve a lot of problems. It does solve some at a national level. But a lot of our challenges, yours and mine, are extremely local. It's about the pothole in front of our road. It's about the sewage in front of us. It's about the air quality that we face in our cities. It's about the traffic of all the issues. That is not necessarily going to be solved at the national level alone, and even maybe not at the state level. So what role does government play in, your and my life, the local government, the corporation, the city corporation in large cities? How do you look at it?
Well, thanks, Satya, for having me on your show. I always hold you in very high regard and esteem, so it's wonderful to have the conversation with you. So first, I would like to start off by saying many people don't even know that there are 3 levels of government. We all are familiar with the central and the state governments. But when I ask people, do you know that there's a third type of government that exists? People draw a blank. So there is very little understanding or awareness about the third level of government. As per the Indian Constitution, as per the federal structure, not only is there a central government and there's a state government, There is also a third level of government, which is in the case of cities, the municipal government, or in the case of villages, it's the panchayat. Very often, when I tell people that BBMP, Brihad Bengaluru Navanirmana Party, in Bengaluru is a government, people are shocked. They think of it as a civic agency having some officials appointed or nominated. And what people don't understand is BBMP as a government which comprises elected representatives who we elect as corporators actually decide the fate of the city. Every year, there is an amount of 10,000 crores that is spent by BBMP for the maintenance of our civic communities and civic infrastructure. And how that money is to be spent is actually to be decided by the corporators. And the reason why it has to be decided by the corporators is it has to be decentralized. Each ward has to decide for itself how it needs to maintain, how the ward needs to be maintained, and how the civic communities are to be maintained. Otherwise, if there are some officials sitting centrally and going to decide what is to be done for 14,000 kilometers of roads in Bengaluru and 740 square kilometers of area, it's impossible. And that is why the municipal government or the local government is probably the most important government in our lives, and it is the least understood government as far as we the citizens are concerned. So the more awareness that people have about what the municipal government is, and in the specific case of Bengaluru, what BBMP is, what the role of BBMP is, how it decides how the city is to be maintained, how the budget is to be allocated, who is a corporator, what is the role of a corporator, how do they play a role in the maintenance of the wards and ultimately the city. I think that's where the future of Bengaluru lies, the future of cities lie. The more and more it's being controlled by the state government in the absence of elections happening, it's going to destroy our city further and further.
People understand that if there are corporators, they can go to them and get things done. But it seems that even without the corporators, the city seems to be going on just fine. It seems to be the same complaints, but they at least seem to think that the MLAs can solve the problem. I don't necessarily need a corporator. At the end of the day, is it just that there's too much of complications if you have a corporator? And if most of their job is only about administration, and the BBMP's assistant engineers, assistant executive engineers, and these kind of people are doing the administrative task, they kind of start questioning the role of the corporator. What is your view on that? Are the corporators adding value, or are they just not? Is their role not substantive enough to have them?
See, is the rule substantive enough? I think it's substantive enough. Now, whether the corporator can fulfill the job, that boils down to how good or how bad the person is. This is the same thing as saying we elect an MP who is a criminal and he does a bad job. Doesn't mean that the role of the MP is not substantive. The person who's doing the job is not doing a great job. Now, coming to whether a corporator can make a difference, and in the absence of the corporator, things seem to be working fine. I remember there was this person in one part of the city who was telling me, hey, you know what? I interact with our area MLA. Anytime there is some issue that has to be fixed in my road, what time he fixes it? What I need a corporator? Why are our roads flooding? When during summertime, we face a severe drought these days. But the same thing when it comes to a rainy season, the roads start getting flooded. The roads are getting flooded because the Rajakarve network is in a horrible shape. The stormwater drains that are supposed to have connected the lakes do not even exist in some places. For example, in the Mahadevapura area, the drains do not even exist between quite a few lakes. And guess what? There is something like 1,500 crores that was spent on constructing these so-called stormwater drains. Who is supposed to have done it? Was it done or not? Nobody has a clue. This is where the corporator comes into the picture. Stormwater drains come under BBMP. The budget for stormwater drains are coming under BBMP. The decision on which stormwater drains are to be constructed, which are to be maintained, how much of money has to go into it, is the decision of a corporator, not an MLA, not an MP, not the chief minister, not the prime minister. It's the corporator who has to decide along with the citizens of the ward through ward committees and area sabhas. The reality is they have not happened. and it doesn't come under the purview or the jurisdiction of the MLA, except of course when the BBMP is under state administration like what it is right now. But when the BBMP council is in place, these decisions are to be taken by the BBMP council and specifically at the ward level to be done by the corporator. And the reality is bulk of this money has been siphoned off. Bulk of this money has been earned in the system. And hence we are seeing all this misgovernance. If I were to ask you a question, Sathya, are you happy with the quality of the civic amenities and infrastructure in your ward? They are not. When I talk to people across the city, irrespective of the ward that you are in, the quality and the state of civic amenities and infrastructure is in pathetic shape. It's a direct consequence of the corporators not having done a good job. And that's where we need to have good corporators. Through the good corporators, we need to have citizens participating in the process, budgets being properly allocated and approved in the council, and citizens along with the corporator working together to ensure that our wards are kept in great shape. It comes purely under the domain of the corporator and not an MLA or an MP. If we are happy with just a random portal being fixed, a random footpath being fixed, a random garbage getting set right, and we don't bother about the state of the overall state of the civic amenities and infrastructure, by all means, we can function without corporators, we can function without a BBMP council. But if you want a good state of civic amenities and infrastructure in your ward that you feel proud about, that you think is deserving of a city like Bengaluru, we need to have corporators elected. We need to have good corporators elected. We need to have a BBMP council in place. We need to have discussions and debate going on in the BBMP council. We need to have good decisions taken in the BBMP council. We need to have proper budgets allocated to each ward, and we need to have the corporators functioning properly. That is the only way a city can run, and that's the only way our wards and our city can have a bright future.
Why doesn't it then happen? It's not just Bengaluru. There are lots of big cities in the country and lots of smaller cities in the country which don't seem to have local governance at all. And there seems to be no cognizance taken by either the state election commission or the courts or anybody else. Why do you think that doesn't happen, and how can we make sure that this cannot be given a go by? It's like you can't not have a state government. As soon as one is ended, you need to have elections within a certain time frame and get the other one elected. But you can go by for like 5 years, 8 years without a local government for large cities which are struggling. Why does that happen?
So let's break into three layers, Satya. There's a political issue, there is an electoral issue, and there is a legal issue relating to this. What do you mean by a political issue? Interestingly, in Karnataka, the elections to municipalities like Dharwad, Hubli, they have happened. But when it comes to Bengaluru, it keeps getting postponed. Similarly, Mumbai will keep getting postponed, Delhi will keep getting postponed. But some of the smaller municipalities, it keeps happening on time. The fundamental reason is the quantum of the budget. Bengaluru, BBMP, every year it's a 10,000 crore budget. Mumbai is 20,000 crores. Hyderabad, I don't know the number, but it's probably at least 7,000, 8,000 crores, probably 12,000, 13,000 crores. Delhi will be again in the tune of 20, 30,000 crores. And when this municipality, which has a budget of 10, 20, 30,000 crores, doesn't have an elected BBMP council or doesn't have an elected municipal council, it comes directly under the administration of the state government. It comes directly under the administration of the MLAs, which means the MLAs will have direct access to this 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 crore rupees. And when these guys smell that money and the power that comes along with that, they don't want to give up. So that is a political issue. Interestingly, when it comes to BBMP elections, it's not Congress versus BJP. It's not like Congress says you should hold election and BJP says you should not, or the other way around. You have Congress and BJP MLAs aligned on one side who do not want to hold the BBMP election, and then you have the Congress and BJP corporate aspirants who are aligned on the other side. They are fighting against each other. The Congress and BJP corporate aspirants don't have any good intent on their side. They are very, very upset that this 10,000 crores of money that's being looted, they're not getting that not. They're not getting their share of the loot. So this money that's at stake, that's a political issue that makes the MLAs keep trying to postpone the election. The electoral issue, what I talk about is, have you ever seen a Lok Sabha or an assembly election get postponed? We don't. Why is that? If any Lok Sabha or assembly election gets postponed, the party in power that postpones that election will get impacted electorally whenever that election happens. Because people will know that the party has nefarious designs and is deliberately delaying it. And hence, they will hit them electorally where it hurts them the most. When it comes to municipal elections, it doesn't have any electoral impact because most people don't even know that there is something called as a BBMP election or a municipal election, and they do not hold the state government accountable for it. And hence, it doesn't impact the political party that's running the state government. It doesn't hit them electorally and where it hurts them the most. So again, they don't have an incentive to hold that election, or they don't have a penalty that they worry about when it comes to that. And thirdly, the legal problem. When it comes to Lok Sabha and Assembly elections, it's one agency, Election Commission, the Central Election Commission, that is responsible for delimitation, reservation, and conduct of the elections. And the delimitation reservation happens once every 25 years. Whereas when it comes to the municipal bodies, the delimitation and reservation is done by the state government. Only the responsibility of conducting the election comes to the state election commission. So every time an election falls due, the state government will announce that we are going to do a new delimitation and reservation. They will pass a notification to that effect, and it cripples the state election commission. It handcuffs the state election commission. So till the time they do delimitation and reservation, the state election commission cannot hold the election. And the state election commission goes to the court, and there is a legal wrangle that happens, and a lot of loopholes are found in the system, and it keeps getting postponed. So there are three layers to it. There is a political layer where the MLAs do not want the election to be held. There is an electoral issue where the electorate or the citizens do not understand the relevance or the importance of these elections, and they don't penalize the party in power that delays the election. And third, there is a legal issue or a legal framework where there is a big constitutional defect which prevents it from happening. And a combination of these things are taken advantage of by the party in power. And it doesn't matter whether the party is in power, is a Congress or a BJP or a JDS, they all keep doing the same thing. So these are the real reasons. So one simple thing, if all of the citizens are aware as to who is doing that, which party is responsible for this, and if they can hit them electorally where it hurts them the most, we will never have any municipal election get delayed in the future.
There's a lot of money at stake, and everybody wants to have a piece of that pie, and they're just fighting over that pie instead of actually solving people's problems. So this hints at
Correct.
how do we really get around it. One of the things that was suggested recently, which was in the news, is BBMP was going to be split into 5 different pieces, different cities, different corporations. What is your take on that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's either good or bad. I actually don't care whether Bengaluru is governed by one municipal corporation or 3 or 5 or even 10. The core issue is not that, Satya. The reason why the misgovernance is happening right now is because, number one, citizens are not involved in the process of governance. The Constitution, as well as BBMP Act, clearly mandates that citizens have to be involved in the municipal government through ward committee and area sabhas. Ward committees were constituted in 2018, more than 25 years after it was constitutionally mandated, and that too because the High Court passed an order. Left to themselves, the corporators, or even if it was under state administration, none of them wanted to have ward committees because if we have ward committees, citizens will be involved. Then there is the concept of area sabhas, which is enshrined in the BBMP Act, which is enshrined in the Karnataka Municipal Corporations Act. Again, not implemented by any party which has been in power. Why? Because if you constitute area sabhas and if you involve citizens, you can't keep doing the hanky-panky. Second is accountability. Where we know that more than 50% of the projects in Bengaluru are given to a single agency, which is a corrupt agency without even a tendering process. Do you know this?
Yeah.
50% of the BBMP projects, and I think many of the state government projects are also given to one single agency called as Karnataka Rural Infrastructure Development Limited, KRIDL. And the state governments every year pass some kind of a notification to exempt KRIDL from a tendering process. And through that, they give contracts after contracts, thousands of crores worth of contracts to KRIDL. without any tendering process. Canada is blacklisted by many agencies. It doesn't have any competence, but project after project is given to them. Why? That's the conduit through which the MLAs and corporators actually make their money. We don't even know about it. A proper accountable process is one where a tendering process is done. The officials are held accountable. The elected representatives are held accountable for running a proper tendering process, which is not even in place in the city. And there is a loophole that's been found and implemented beautifully by all these parties. There is no accountability in the system. And finally, there's no transparency. You live in the Sanjay Nagar ward, right? During
Yeah.
the 2015 to 2020 tenure of the BBMP Council, how much of money was allocated to your ward? How many projects were allocated? Which are these projects? Were they ultimately executed or not? Who executed those? Do you have access to any of that information? You
No.
don't. So, citizen participation, accountability, and transparency are the three key aspects of good governance. If you implement that, it doesn't matter whether you have a single corporation, five corporations, etc. Those are semantics. The key is if you have a ward which has anywhere from 20 to 40,000 voters, if you, let's say, split it into five corporations, reduce it to 20,000 voters per ward, that doesn't fundamentally make a difference. In a, let's say, a ward which has, let's say, 15,000 or 20,000 voters, if you do not have citizen participation, accountability, and transparency, it will still be badly managed and misgoverned. At the same time, let's say you have a ward with 40,000 voters, but has citizen participation, accountability, and governance, it will be a very well governed ward. So the issue is something else. The issue is not about whether a corporation has to be trifurcated, bifurcated, or split into 5 or 10. The issue is what I call as CAT, citizen participation, accountability, and governance. You introduce that, most of the things will get. That is my view. So even now, my view is that if you want to do a splitting up of BBMP into five corporations, by all means do it. But first, hold the BBMP election. Let the corporators be elected. Let them constitute a proper ward committee. Let them constitute area sabhas. Let them have citizens involved in the process. Let them hold the officials accountable. Let them do a proper tendering process for every project. Let them make everything transparent in the public domain. 90% of the governance gets fixed there itself. That's my view, Satya.
Yeah, but then that takes away all the money making that they can do. Even today, if you want a road contract or a garbage contract, that's where all the money is for all of the elected
Yes.
representatives to earn. And it is in nobody's interest other than the citizens' interest to actually have transparency at all.
And that's really where
Mm.
Bengaluru Navanirmana Party, we want to get
Mm.
a few good corporators elected in the upcoming BBMP election, whenever it happens. And I want to show, even if even just a few words, in those words, how ward level governance through citizen participation, accountability, and transparency can be delivered. Interestingly, not only am I talking about it, I have already delivered it through BNP in a few words. I've
Mm.
constituted area sabhas in a few words where through the citizens we have raised civic issues, we have solved hundreds and hundreds of issues already. And through these area sabhas, we are engaging with officials, holding them accountable for getting work done. And lastly, I talked about your word, right? Not just your word. Through the 5-year term of the BBMP Council from 2015 to 2020, 63,629 ward level projects worth 21,653 crores of rupees across 198 wards, ward by ward, year by year, project by project by project. On the Bengaluru Navanirmana Party website, we have already put it out in the public domain. You can actually go to the website of namabnp.org, go to the citizens portal, you can choose your ward, you can see details of every single project. How did we do it without even being in power? Finally, it boils down to intent and will. And that's something that I've already done. In fact, I encourage you to go and do it. And who is watching this podcast, I want them to go and do this so that you will know. So, not only do I talk about these concepts and actually implementing this through BNP without even being in power, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to win a lot of wards. But even if you're able to win a few wards, I want to demonstrate how citizen participation, accountability, and transparency can deliver great governance to any ward that we are.
That's how most of the other parties, the startup parties, whatever I call that, because I have a mental model of startup parties which are coming to clean our system. It goes down the normal path. I have not seen too much of transformation happening. They all come with the whole intent of cleaning up the system and things like that. How will you resist the forces and urges of conforming to the existing pattern. Will the contractors let you do that? Will the other political parties let you do that? Will the system of money making that is there between all of the people who are vested in it, why should people think that again an attempt to clean is going to work?
The problem of some of the startup parties, specifically the one which has seemingly failed spectacularly at the national stage after having showed a lot of promise, I think it's self-inflicted because of political ambition. Right? Where instead of just focusing on one city, where they were actually doing a good job, political ambition overtook everything. So in the case of BNP, I'm very clear. I have imposed clear restrictions around myself and around BNP. The charter document of BNP mandates that we will contest only in the municipal elections, that too in the greater part of Bengaluru. That is all that we are focused on. So even if I harbor chief ministerial, prime ministerial, presidential ambitions, I can't go through BNP. I can always join another party and I can vote another party, Bengaluru Navanirmana Party and do, but I can't go through Bengaluru Navanirmana Party for sure. Coming to the system will allow a party like BNP to function. I don't see any reason why it cannot or it will not. It's a very simple thing. We all think that all contractors are corrupt. All contractors are not corrupt, Satya. There are many, many good contractors. Only thing is, they are kept out of the system. I told you about KRIDL. 50% of the projects are given to KRIDL. KRIDL doesn't have any competence of its own. It in turn outsources to other contractors, and that doesn't have to be through a tendering process again. So KRIDL in turn will give it to a friendly contractor through whom money is exchanged. But when you put out a proper tendering process, there are lots of good contractors. If they are paid on time, they are willing to participate. And I myself have talked to a few good contractors, and there are cases of some good contracts right in front of my apartment. There is a skywalk which was given to a contractor. The contractor refused to pay a bribe. It got stuck for almost about 1.5 years because the MLA wanted a bribe. The contractor stood his ground, and finally, we the citizens got involved. Through a good loan officer who was appointed, we got the skywalk completed without a single rupee of bribe paid. All it needed was citizen involvement. If you have good people at the helm of affairs, and if you have citizens participating in the process, and if you're able to build in some very fundamental principles of accountability and transparency, good governance is eminently possible. And none of these things I'm talking of in a very theoretical construct. I talk about things only those things that I've done it, of course, at a small scale. And not just in one or two places, in quite a few places, in different types of projects, it works. Just that nobody believes that it happens. And if collective analysis believes that it won't happen, it's Pygmalion principle, it will not happen. On the contrary, if we change our mindset and say that, hey, what is stopping, why can't we try? The system is designed beautifully. The system is designed to keep nefarious people out if citizens are involved and proper processes are followed. Just that we citizens do not want to be involved, and hence proper processes are not followed, and hence day after day, month after month, year after year, word after word, the same thing keeps happening with corruption, misgovernance, incompetence, inefficiency, all of these things fit in. And that's really where we want to bring about a change, and I'm very confident that we can do it. There's no one can stop us. So finally, it boils down to you and me, Satya. When I say you and me, we the citizens. If we know what's happening, and to some extent, if you're even involved in what's happening, and the Constitution guarantees that things can be done very well. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight and everything is going to get transformed overnight, but it's a process over a few years. If you're able to do it systematically, I'm very confident that we can turn things completely around on their head.
Somebody asked me some time ago, why do you dabble around this urban mess? Because it's so complicated and so many parameters. Is that a thankless task? I said, I'm wired a little differently that way. I'm a hopeless lost case, so I'm going to be doing it. I'll turn the question on you and ask you, why did you decide to get into this?
It's exactly the same reason. Simple, one word, nutcase. Right?
Because you had a nice corporate career and you had a lot of things going for you. Why this?
Yeah, there are things that happened which did change my life. When I tell this, people are shocked. Till about 2015, I had not even voted in my life. Ever. And even better, or even worse, I used to hold a strong view that voting is one of the most useless things that we can do in our lives. And from there, becoming a full-fledged politician, starting my own political party, roping in people into this, and asking people to vote ultimately, that too in a municipal election, has been a heck of a journey for me. There were a few turning points that triggered this, Sathya. So, on a more serious note, it was not serendipitous, but a series of things that happened that changed my life completely. So, first turning point I would say was the starting of Bangalore Apartments Federation, BAF. I live in an apartment complex on Old Madras Road. Our apartment residents, and we started getting harassed by civic agencies like BWSSB, BBMP, Pollution Control Board, with all kinds of notices and asking us to pay up a lot more, imposing penalties on us, unfair rules. That is the time I decided that we'll start a federation to represent the voice of apartment complexes and apartment residents. I didn't realize it at that point of time, but that was, in a way, a stepping stone for ultimately what was going to happen. Even though it was not planned, of course, it all happened by chance. BAF today is a federation that has more than 1,300 apartment complexes across Bengaluru as members, representing probably around 8 to 9 lakh citizens. And it all happened over a period of about 4 to 5 years. Through BAF, as a founder and as a general secretary at that time, and I started engaging with government, with ministers, with the politicians, with the officials, they all said the same thing. You guys living in apartment complexes, you do not come out and vote, you do not care, and hence whatever harassment we are imposing on you, you better shut up your mouth and listen to and comply with whatever we are saying. So that was a big turning point for me where I realized that by not voting, we are all imposing misery upon ourselves. And from that point onwards, not only did I become a voter, through various BAF teams and through the BNP teams, I've conducted many voter ID camps through which I've encouraged lots and lots of citizens to become voters and get them to come out and cast their vote. Today, the voting percentages are much higher in apartment complexes. Through BAF, I definitely do not want to get involved in the political system. I would say a couple of incidents and instances, along with many other things, but two things I would say stand out, which I would like to bring to your notice and to the city's notice, which changed my life, which converted me from a social activist to becoming a politician. Number one, in one apartment complex where the president of the apartment called me, he was being harassed by a politician in his area. In their apartment, they segregate waste 100% in every single household. But the contractor who comes, he comes with a single vehicle, he mixes up everything and goes and dumps it in a landfill. And the president started asking a question: what is the point of us segregating if this contractor ultimately is going to mix everything up? So then I had suggested to them that you go with a professional agency, and we had given the contact of a professional agency. And finally, when they decided to go with that professional agency, even though at a higher cost, the president got a call from the husband of the corporator of the ward. That ward was reserved for women. So in that case, the husband of the corporator, he called and he said, I understand that you are not, dumping the existing guy and going with a professional agency. If you do that, I will get the right in front of your home dug up. I will get the pollution control board to issue notices to your apartment complex, even if you're in complaints. And in your apartment, the khata has still not been transferred from the builder to your individual names. I will ensure that that doesn't get done. Now you decide whether you want to go to this professional agency or whether you want to stick to that old guy. Finally, they were forced to stick to that old guy. That contract is nothing but binary for this corporator. And that's how all this nexus is happening. My blood was boiling. We, the citizens, we are doing our bit to make the city sustainable, better, and doing our bit to make the city the best city. These elected representatives are the husband of the elected representative. Not only are they not doing their job that they're supposed to do, they're destroying whatever little the citizens are doing. I was livid. I felt outraged. I was very angry. This joker, or the voice of this joker, we are only elected here, and we deserve what we are getting. The second instance, which is even more tragic, is the case of a death that happened right in front of my apartment complex on Old Madras Road. I live on Bengaluru Junction, which was a hazardous place to cross, and we've been crying hoarse for a skywalk. To the MLA, to the corporator, nothing happened. In 2018, the skywalk didn't exist. As fate would have it, a 17-year-old girl who was crossing that road on that fateful day got run over by a bus. She died on the spot. Who's responsible for this? And we knew that this was a disaster waiting to happen. And after death happened, we went and talked to the MLA and corporator. Even then, these guys refused to do anything. And finally, we did a protest. And once we did a protest, somewhere a budget appears out of nowhere. The work got commissioned. And we were all at least happy that it was getting done at that time. After the road got dug up on both sides of the road, the work came to a grinding halt. Then when we went and talked to the corporator, he kept on saying, "Agate, agate." Nothing happened. Finally, we went to the media, and the media created an article which quotes the word corporator Meenakshi, saying this in the public domain, saying that the contractor was forced to stop the work because a senior politician wanted to discuss something with the contractor. We all know what that something is, which is a bribe that the guy wants. And he had the power to stop the project for a bribe. And that's when I realized that the value of a 17-year-old girl's life in the city is the amount of bribe that is to be paid to the MLA to get a project done. Here we have a set of elected representatives who are so shameless that they are openly conveying through the media that you are corrupt, do what you can. And they don't care even if people die. All that they are interested in is making their money, retaining their power, and doing all the nonsense that they are doing. And not just these two, a series of other things where we are seeing all the misgovernance. I realize that left to the hands of these people, and whether it's BJP or Congress or JDS, it's all the same. Whether it's the MLA or the corporators, they're all the same. Left to their hands, they will take us and take the city to a point where it's already disastrous, where they will completely destroy the city. And at some point, I felt it's up to people like you and me. Of course, and I hold you in high regard, Satya, because you are doing your bit. Only thing is, we were all doing through BAF, through you being the cycle mayor, and through your mobility initiatives. We've all been doing it from outside the system. Inside the system, there is muck, there is rot, and there are all these filthy people who are doing this. And I felt that that needed to change. I felt that people like you and me need to get into the system. And that's why I floated Bengaluru Navanirmana Party as India's first and only political party with an exclusive focus on Bengaluru. That is one city and its municipal governance with a focus only on civic issues and civic amenities and infrastructure. That is our roads, footpaths, skywalks, drains, potholes, parks, playgrounds, lakes, all of which are in pretty pathetic shape. Today, there's no political party and politician discussing about it or even working on it. I wanted BNP at least to start focusing on it and working on it. And I wanted to get good citizens like you and me elected as corporators. Every ward gets a budget of 100 to 200 crores, which today is getting siphoned off. Put that money to good use and ensure that in each ward, our amenities get better and ultimately become the best. And through that, my vision, my dream is to make Bengaluru a model city and possibly the best city in the world. And that's all eminently possible if the 10,000 crores that's spent every year at the Bengaluru level and 100 to 200 crores that's spent at the ward level over a 5-year period is spent properly with good citizens elected as corporators, with citizen participation, accountability, and transparency. It's eminently possible. I remember Ravichandra telling me this. We have fools, but you know what? It's these fools who ultimately change the world and bring about change. So I'm happy to be a fool and a fellow fool along with people like you, Satya.
That's a wonderful thought to end on because we want to be international city and we want to have a good quality of life, but we are surrounded by the people we are electing and we are not able to see the change. We get dejected. But we constantly look for hope from newer and newer people. There needs to be a lot more waves of this happening. Even if it is incremental progress, we need to see something different that I think should be given a shot. If you don't try, you can stay where you are and you can keep getting what you've always been getting.
I don't know whether I'll succeed or fail. If I succeed, wonderful. We make Bengaluru the best city in the world. If I fail, at least I tried. What do I have to lose in this?
I think there should be more people trying to say that why should we tolerate things that are not taking us forward? Why should we allow a system which is just kind of looting us? I'm not just necessarily saying it is you and me alone, but the thought of saying that what we are having now is not acceptable needs to be vocal. I think we've been stolen enough. And I don't think this should be. We should look at election funding and other things in different ways. And there are opportunities to do different ways of doing this. It need not be the garbage contract and the road contract that is funding the election. It has to be something totally different. And we can't be stolen every day. And it's hurting us every day in productivity, in peace of mind, loss of life, and everything. But thanks, Srikanth, for coming on the show and talking about local governance. I'd love to have you on some other time because there's a lot to talk about. But this is a good intro, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Satya. I enjoyed the conversation only because you and I are fellow travelers on the same path. We might have taken different paths, but the end goal is the same. And I think that's where the connect is. So, wonderful being part of the show. Look forward to doing the bicycle rides together in a few parts.
Yeah.
And then together, step by step, let's all work towards making Bengaluru the best city in the world. Why not?